Midway through Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle prepares a peculiar meal. A bowl full of milk and chunks of white bread, doused in peach-flavored brandy, and sprinkled with a generous sample of powdered sugar. It's a strange mix, but a deliberate one. The recipe is found almost verbatim in Paul Schrader's screenplay, which I suppose is unsurprising, given Schrader's affinity for unconventional food and beverage concoctions. Bizarre as this pseudo-cereal might seem, it is consistent with Travis's diet. Fast food wrappers and empty Coke cans adorn his apartment. A trip to the movies doesn't just yield some snacks, but an absurd amount of candy. Beer cans line the background of his home, while a concealed bottle of booze sits comfortably in his coat pocket. This meal, then, is a pure embodiment of Travis's cravings, satisfying his sweet tooth and his thirst for alcohol. But there's more to Travis's eating than just personal taste. To quote Schrader, people eat bad food as an extreme manifestation of self-loathing. Junk food is like pornography, offering immediate satisfaction, but no lasting value. While there are ways to casually enjoy junk food within a broader, healthy lifestyle, the severity of Travis's meal demonstrates self-destructive eating habits, which go well beyond some chips or the odd quarter pounder. This scene comes at a pivotal stage in Travis's mental degradation. He hasn't yet collected an arsenal of guns, nor has he sculpted himself into a living weapon, but the downward spiral has begun. Rejection and loneliness have motivated potent feelings of despair and anger, with Travis lashing out violently against Betsy, the object of his affection. Such violent instincts are further stirred by one fare, who shares his own fantasies of killing his wife for her sexual betrayal. Travis recognizes that violence in himself, that he isn't well and that he needs help, but his efforts to reach out to a fellow cabbie result in incoherent rambling and empty platitudes.
Go on, get laid. Get drunk, do anything.
If he can't find comfort in friends or lovers, then surely Travis can find comfort in food, especially the ultimate comfort foods of sugar and alcohol. It's important to remember, however, that the strangeness of this meal is hidden behind closed doors. Privately, Travis may eat sugary bread chunks soaked in milk and brandy, but publicly, his food choices are far less conspicuous. This is rather telling. Food is both deeply personal and deeply social. What we eat is motivated by individual taste, but also cultural ideas about which foods are appropriate and in what contexts. Social gatherings like Christmas or Thanksgiving bring socialized rituals, which clearly delineate which foods can be served and which cannot. Day-to-day eating may be less firmly regulated than formal events, but it too is dictated by unspoken rules, especially when that eating is shared with others. Foods chosen on a date are motivated as much by what they indicate about the eater as they are for nutrition or flavor, if not more so. Eating, then, becomes a form of social performance, something Travis is instinctively aware of. Reflecting on his own coffee date with Betsy, the voiceover notes,
I had black coffee and apple pie with a slice of melted yellow cheese. I think that was a good selection.
Though still consistent with his sugar-heavy diet, Travis is evaluating his meal not for its own intrinsic qualities, but its extrinsic value as appropriate food for a date, as a choice made in a specific social context. This distinction between public and private eating reveals that Travis is aware of the unwritten rules and social scripts surrounding food. He knows that one of these meals is normal, and that the other is strange, and his efforts to abide normal eating publicly demonstrates a desire to socialize and fit in. For all the character's awkwardness, for all his eventual antisocial explosions of violence, he is trying his best. And that brings me back to the movie theater. Earlier, I described this excessive snack binge as a further extension of Travis's unhealthy eating habits, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Here too, Travis is mimicking social scripts. What do people do at movie theaters after all? They get snacks. Popcorn, soda, and candy are rituals so strongly associated with cinemas that it can be difficult to imagine going to the movies without them. Notice too that Travis only turns to the snack bar after his banter and flirtations are shut down by the woman at concessions. Social rituals are, in part, a means to reduce anxiety in uncertain social situations. Accordingly, Travis fails in one social situation.
Do you want me to call a manager?
Oh, you don't have to call the manager. I mean, I'm just asking.
Troy!
Then retreats into mimicked behavior.
Can I have a chuckle, sir?
Except this is also a misread of the scenario. Travis isn't at the movies, he's at a sleazy porno theater, a context where any snacks are atypical, and certainly the excessive amount Travis buys. His interpretation of social scripts is sound in theory, but made inappropriate in context. This foreshadows the porno theater date with Betsy. Travis is once again mimicking a social behavior. Couples on dates go to see movies, but completely misreads the type of movies it would be appropriate to go to. This is the most disastrous misread of social scripts, a painfully uncomfortable situation for Betsy that prompts an immediate rejection of Travis, which in turn accelerates Travis's mental freefall. But the subtler details around food are just as important, because they reveal Travis's need to mimic social behaviors. In even routine eating habits, Travis needs to make a concentrated effort to eat normally. And just imagine how exhausting that must be. Imagine if every meal you ate publicly was a test of your social skills. Imagine if no matter how hard you tried to mimic acceptable social behaviors, you kept getting it wrong. It's not surprising that wounded and vulnerable, Travis would just give up and eat a bowl of undiluted sugar, carbs, and alcohol. That the strangeness of this meal is not gawked at, but quietly observed by the camera, is consistent with the greater empathy the film fosters for its protagonist. Taxi Driver understands that, for all Travis's eccentricities and even his violence, he is largely defined by a simpler and more universal yearning to be accepted. The tragedy of the film is not merely that Travis is a lonely outsider. It's that he recognizes his own strangeness, just as he recognizes the scripts which govern normal social behaviors. But he cannot reproduce those behaviors himself. How Travis eats is a potent distillation of this tragedy. A man grasping for normalcy as best he can. This video was inspired by a conversation from the Cinema in Seconds podcast, a podcast dedicated to talking about small moments in great movies. Specifically from our 66th episode on food in movies, where we also talked about The Matrix, Queen Christina, and Wonder Woman, among other films. I've been co-hosting the show with my friend Ian for about 2 years now, and the podcast also features a rotating panel of guests, including fellow YouTubers like Be Kind Rewind, Nader Tot, and Ross McIntyre, film critics like The Movie Vampire, authors like Philip Motez, and also our pal Greg. We're slowly sneaking up on our 100th episode, so if you like movie podcasts or want to hear me in a more casual format, I'd highly recommend hitting us up wherever you listen to podcasts.